Hello and welcome to We've Got Issues. It is a lively conversation amongst a group of friends who have sometimes competing thoughts, sometimes similar thoughts, sometimes adversarial thoughts about a lot of the topics that are going on in the world today. I'd like to introduce you to my friends Ron Evans, Darren Gray, live from Detroit, or LA via Detroit. And I'm Nick Cates. I'll be moderating today's conversation. And what we are is we're friends. We met more than 40 years ago at USC. And there's another group of friends, a broader group of friends that we're on a text thread together. And we're always exchanging thoughts, ideas, rants, raves, and whatnot. And we like to bring that. We thought that they were relevant to probably what a lot of you are talking about. So we want to bring it up for your conversation, for your consideration. And if you have thoughts or feedback on what we're saying, you got other things to add, or you want to just continue the conversation offline, please feel free to like and share and leave a comment, and we'll definitely hit you back. So today I have the honor of being the one to present the topic for discussion from the text thread. And so I'll just dive right in. Guys, before I dive in, anybody got something they want to say or offer before we get going?
Nope, just a waiting.
Don't carve me up too bad, okay? Because if any of you guys watch our previous episodes, you know it can be a little bit personal, but it's always in love. Always in love, and always in love. Well-founded points behind it. So anyway, my word or phrase of the week is stay woke. Okay, and what stay woke is in this era of anti-DEI and of the pendulum swinging back toward more conservative and even going far past conservative into just adversarial against progress, in my estimation, is that this is just the natural ebb that comes from a flow that we've seen before. And I do believe that ultimately the woke thing that has become such a negative talking point that the pendulum in probably not too long amount of time is going to swing back in this direction, because I believe that people are seeing and will see that there is no easy answer for the nature of how life works in America. And as much as the dominant culture, meaning white, what we typically call white culture, feels like they have been aggrieved by some kind of liberal agenda against them, what's really happening is that the country itself has been captured by forces that really have to do less with race, class, and other things than it does have to do with money. And as I said in one of our previous conversations, there's a aphorism that I think applies here, which is that the answer to all your questions is money. And so all the things about culture or about, DEI and all that stuff really is a distraction for what's going on. And I'm going to play a clip that I think illustrates just that point, and then we can talk about it on the other side.
Very few people read the third part of a theory of justice, which is on the moral and political psychology of social stability and a just order. And Rawls there talks about the fact that the political arrangements need to be such that they produce sympathies and bonds among the citizens intergenerationally in such a way that all citizens can come to see the collective arrangement as a shared project in the common interest. And at some point, inequality begins to undermine that, even if the worst off are not materially destitute.
So that I played just a small part of a much longer clip because I didn't want it to run on too long. But there's actually a theory here that this professor is putting forward, which gets down to the idea of the destabilizing effects of inequality. And when we started to see that the dominant culture, white culture, was saying that prices are too high, the system is rigged, that things are not working for me, right? And there was a philosophy that said the reason behind those things are the woke agenda or the DEI or transgender rights or all these things that seem to be easy targets for why your life isn't working, and not the real investment in a general a level of general progressive opportunity for all Americans is really where the problem is. And so the structure, the power structure, which is built around those who have most access to government and the levers of government, which is basically the rich and the powerful, that they kind of bring all the benefits toward their end, and very little is left over for the rest of us. And the rest of us are fighting against one another when really the real enemy is the ones who have basically rigged the system in their favor. And so that's my general thought, is that as those people start to wake up to the fact that really, even with this current government, things are not getting better for me. Like, they promised me that my prices would be lower. They promised me that if we got rid of DEI and made things more efficient, somehow my life would be better. And those things don't happen. It's my hope that the pendulum will start to swing the other way, and people will say, well, maybe we've been lied to. Maybe all this stuff that we've been told is really a distraction for what's really going on. So that's what's going to help save the day, is that people will start to wake up, and hopefully we can help to make that point more clearly. Your thoughts?
Well, mine goes back to Animal Farm, the book that Ron sort of reminded me of. As the pigs start to take over more and more, they start to amend the 7 laws so that the subjugated animals are just going along. And so my thoughts are that those that are in power are going to continue to change the rules, change the laws, change the expectation. 1984 is, when they talk about changing the language, changing how people think. I believe that with the advent of AI and social media, that the goalposts are going to keep changing, and there's not going to be a way for people to be woke because the rules keep changing. And I think that those that are in power are going to stay in power because they control our methods of communication, and thereby controlling how we think.
Brian, what do you have to say?
I mean, it's such a complicated issue. I was looking for points to disagree with you, and I couldn't really come up with any. So I think that there's a belief that our country was divinely ordained to have a certain set of people come over here and have this promised land, and to have religious liberties and economic freedom. And that's how this country was founded, and that's the ethos of this country. And if you are not part of that ethos, and if you don't look like the people that founded this country, you are starting a few steps behind in the race. And I think that I don't agree with you that people are going to one day wake up and say that their benefit is not what I believed, therefore we need to change the system. They're just going to say it's really those people that don't look like me, that manufacture across my borders. It's people that don't look like me that are causing all the grief in my life, and I'm going to attack them, not the structure of our country, which depends on an inequality of socioeconomic class.
Right. Darren, you both bring up great points, and Darren, in his analysis, I think brings up the real challenges. I think Ron, you and I are struggling with, which is that the goalposts do keep changing, and the methods and the ability to communicate a message is really in the hands of those who have the power. Like they have the ability to decide what is disseminated to people. Ron, your point is one that I think is the overarching thing that I'm trying to get at, which is the power of a story, right? The story, the ethic, the kind of the thing that you pay attention to is what is the overriding kind of direction that we should be going in. And to your point, the whole manifest destiny, or that we were a Christian nation, or any of the things that God had a special finger on America, that gave America an exceptionalism, that the rules of economy, of social, dynamics don't apply to us. We can make the rules up for ourselves. What I want to say is that there has to be, I think that Trump, actually what Trump represents is the end of an era where we kind of go from Reagan to, we went from Bush 1 to Clinton, right? And that was a response to that Reagan era thing. And we went from Clinton, and unfortunately, I think if Clinton had not had that Monica Lewinsky thing, we probably would have went from Clinton to Gore, and we would have had a different history. But we went from Clinton to Bush 2. And the way that they managed the country, and the way that they basically said that we're going to go to war because we want to go to war. We're not going to have the facts on our side about weapons of mass destruction or whatever. And they kind of did what they did. And then the Obama administration was a reaction to that, right? And Obama's, the story, unfortunately, as you've often heard me say, he wasn't a good messenger of his own story. Otherwise, if he had been a better messenger of what he was trying to do, then we might have had Hillary Clinton after him. And I don't know how great she would have been. But because there was such a strong reaction from the dominant culture that we don't want to keep going in that direction, where we feel like more of our leverage is being taken away, we went to the Trump, to the Trump 1 administration. And then Biden was a reaction to that. And then Biden was not a good messenger of his own story. And so we went back to Trump, right? But I think that to some of the things we've talked about over the last several episodes, which is that, you can't look at the administration that you like and not give them the fault for the things that they did not do well, and then look at the other administration that you don't like and put it all on them. There have been things that have continued across administrations that people have not really woken up to. And I think I hope, and I think there's a good chance that Trump might represent the end of that, because of the level of communication, the immediacy of communication that people have, and the ability to tell a new story is going to create an opportunity for people, a person or people, to rise up who can put those dots together. And I'm hoping that that's one of the reasons why we're going to move into a new era where people can see more than they've seen in the past.
I don't know. I think the framers of the stories, the tech, the media, all of that, I think they have an undue influence on the message. Like, one of the things that President Trump and the Republicans are now trying to extend the Trump tax cuts during budget reconciliation, right? Which means that the Democrats and Biden could have ended the Trump tax cuts during their first term budget reconciliation, but they chose not to, which means that we were all looking over here. Oh, like, he's not Trump, he's not Trump, he's not Trump, because that was the message that was getting out. At the same time, the taxes didn't change. No one faults the Biden administration for not repealing the Trump tax cuts, but now they are going on to, like, Trump's going to give another tax break to the billionaires by extending those tax cuts. So I think the culture wars are being stoked by those in power through social media, traditional media, in order to, keep, it doesn't really matter whether it's Republican or Democrat, Trump, Biden, Harris. It's the oligarchs, essentially, of the United States who are in control of all information, and they can move you in a direction without you even realizing it. I have Google Chrome. I've got 2 different profiles, one for work. Well, actually, I got 5. I was running a Google search for something on one profile, And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to put it on my other one because I already have a membership to that one. And I did the same search and I got an entirely different result. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. USC has, for those of us that work USC, we get free LA Times. So I get the free subscription to USC LA Times. And I was looking for something on my other profile on the LA Times. I saw this article. I thought it was, oh, that's interesting. So I was like, well, let me go onto the USC profile because I can actually log in and see the story. The story didn't appear. And so the algorithms think I'm two different people because Dr. Darren Gray and Darren Gray are two different people in its mind. And so it controls the content. And as long as the oligarchs, those in power of the banks, of the media, of transportation, as long as they get to say what I see, feel, and hear, then I can't wake up because I got they put the blanket over me, this blanket of information, and we just don't have access to true information. Unless I think you use DuckDuckGo, I think you might be able to get something with that. Because like Google's like a term now, right? Like it's not just a company, you Google something.
Nick, I don't know where your optimism emanates from or your hope and desire of a better future. In addition to what Darren is saying about the control of the narrative, I have to preface this by saying, look, we've all experienced upward mobility that our parents could only have dreamed of. My father was a truck driver, so it's a world that they couldn't have dreamed of. With that said, when you look at America through a caste system and you take that to India, there are people in India that move up and down caste as well. And I think that we have been benefactors of upward mobility to rise beyond where we started. I think all of us were in financial aid lines and SAS.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy.
Lord knows, paying those fee bills. We were all in financial aid lines at USC, and eternally grateful for our amazing university for getting us off on the right foot. But we also have to realize that we are the exception that has seen upward mobility in this country, and the vast majority are finding that door, that ceiling, unbreakable. And it's not unbreakable in some cases because of people lack education or opportunities, what have you. In another case, it's because someone above them has locked the door and put a padlock on it. And it's not just the media; it is the opportunities of, will our next generation have the same chance to get a college degree? How many first generation college students do we have? Or have they resigned themselves to going to a 2-year community college, getting an AA degree, and always on a career path that has them making less money than other people that go to USC, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, and get a 4-year degree from a prestigious school? And that economic gap increases, the net worth gap increases, and then we're surprised that we're not doing as well as others. We didn't have the same chances. Yeah. And again, we benefited from this a lot, and we worked our tails off. But you have to have the intersection of opportunity and preparedness. And if you're not prepared, when the opportunity comes, I can't do anything. And I think that's what I'm concerned about structurally in our country.
Well, that I'm going to put that clip that I played an excerpt from in the description so people can check it out for themselves. But he hits on exactly the point that you made, Ryan, which is that he was saying that liberals typically have looked at the bad actors and said, if we could just get rid of the bad actors in the system, that the system would be better off for more people, as opposed to saying the system itself, the meritocracy that we say the country is built on is actually the problem. We have to relook at the idea of meritocracy, because meritocracy is a problem for just the reason that you just said, Ron, which is that the people at the top of the food chain have more resources put into their children so that they're more prepared. The children themselves have no more ability and no more work ethic than people who are not in that position, but they have much more training. They have more education. They have more whatever. But here's the equalizing factor, the reason why I feel like people are going to wake up. even those kids who get that kind of opportunity are coming out of college and finding the number of jobs available to them, the positions available to them, that generations or classes before them are drying up, because to the point that Darren was making in our previous episode, the goal of business is to squeeze out as many of the inefficiencies, i.e. workers, that you can. And that could be blue collar and it could be white collar. But our goal is to do more with less, increasingly. And so people coming out of college, unless you've got a finance degree or you've got an MBA or whatever it is, it's going to let you go to a consulting agency or go to Wall Street. Most of those people are going to find that there are fewer opportunities. So at every structural level, there are people who are saying, wait a minute, like this system is not serving me the way it served my parents or the way it served, maybe people 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So I think that when you've got one administration that has all the levers of power on their side, they've got the Congress, they've got the White House, they've got conservative judges, and you see over time that somehow, despite the promises that my life's not getting any better, it's going to hopefully offer a window for people to say, let me just relook.
Well, the problem is that all may be true, but when the president of the United States gets up there and says $10 million for transgender mice, and it wasn't transgender, it was transgenic, which is something different altogether. But when he says that, those people are saying, see, that's why. It's not because the president's policies aren't working. It's because those darn liberals did X, Y, and Z. It's the ability, I think we said in one of the other episodes, to tell the story. And the people who get to tell the story are those that are in power. When you look even at traditional media, the CNNs, the CBSs, the ABC, they get to tell the story. And, it goes back and forth. When the liberal media says, it's because of Trump and this, then so they're not paying attention to the things that the progressives and the elites on the progressive sides are doing for their own benefit, like the insider trading of all these Democratic Congress people. They're not looking at that. They're just looking at, it's those guys. Each group blames the other guys, and the American people tend to do this because, we're not as well read, and we don't have, how do you know what is true anymore? There's not a Walter Cronkite who was left of center, but I could trust him. There's no more arbiters of truth. And so how are they going to become woke if they can't find information that's not tailored to get them to move in a certain direction?
Well, the direction we're going in now, and the ascendance of conservative media has not been a 1 year or 2 year or 4 year or even 10-year project. It's been a long running project. And one of the good things about that example is that now, like what we're doing here, there are more people who have an opportunity to create voices for themselves and for other people to add to the conversation. And from that conversation, I believe there will emerge voices that, unlike what is happening in Trump administration, where he's just putting podcasters and TV hosts into positions of, cabinet positions and whatnot, but there will come people who actually may inspire others to either run for office or to get into office themselves, or whatever the case may be. It's inevitable that the conversation will continue to evolve and shift. And I believe that is something that's going to happen. What is going on in my computer? That's something that it may not happen in a year or 2 years or 4 years, but I believe that people are ready. People really are. I think if there's one thing that's true, people really are ready to see our government operate in a way that serves the people and not itself.
I agree. On both sides, I agree.
And so when you've got such a stark contrast and an administration that is so powerful, and at the end of that, if there's not, and I'll make a confession, I truly hope, because at the end of the day, I just want stuff to work. If Trump is able to actually do things that actually make it better for Americans truly, then I'm not going to kick against that. I see no reason to believe that now, But I truly, and I don't know whether you guys do, you just want stuff to work. Like somebody needs to get in there and be like, I don't care about me. I'm good. I'm here because I want things to work better. And I think people are really ready for that. And if this experiment that we're doing now doesn't work, I think it's going to open a new door.
I was with you until you said, if this experiment doesn't work, it's going to open up a new door. Because I think, Nick, ultimately what I hear from you is that you believe that a power shift in this country is inevitable. And I do not see any evidence of that. We talked, I think, maybe last episode or one before, about the civil rights movement, and the origin of the civil rights movement in the 30s and 40s was fueled and funded by global socialists, the Soviet Union and others, that wanted to unite the American workers. They wanted more labor unions. The civil rights movement was benefited by that. And as a counter to that pressure externally, we passed a lot of laws to help disenfranchise Black folks. Amazing. But the catalyst was an external threat to the American workforce from the Soviet Union and the global socialist movement. Power, I mean, look, what did Malcolm say? Power concedes nothing. And I don't think that if Trump...
Without a demand.
Right. And what is we going to the White House and shouting at the fence is not going to do anything. This is a country about power and economics. So if you can tell me how the economic system is going to be used as an ally for us for economic change, I'm willing to listen. But like many people, I get up every day and I look at the stock market. And that's my barometer on whether we have a good president or a bad president. It's more than that, but that's a big one. That's a big one. You know, and right now we got a bad one.
We just nuked another country, but look at the stock market.
That's right. Hey, I'm in defense stocks. It's good for me. Just kidding. But right now, the investors in this country, the oligarchs, the very wealthy people are saying, "You're messing up, homie. You're messing up. You're messing with my money." And I think that's where the change comes, is when they get an economic pressure on the government to do something different because they're afraid that you're going to mess with their money and take it down into a recession or a depression. But that's the only threat I see.
Well, yeah, I think the 8,000-pound gorilla is this $36 trillion debt, because if we can't pay the interest on the debt, I was trying to run the numbers on that, and we default, then nothing matters. It doesn't matter. So I think the pressure that's on the current administration is unique to any in the past, because all the other ones got to kick the can down the road. We're out of road. We're at the point now where we may not bring in enough to pay the interest. Now, as long as we were paying the interest, people are like, fine. But at 36 trillion, and then if the tax cuts go through 40 trillion, I think we are dangerously close to default. And that changes everything, the stock, everything. And so I think they're under a different type of pressure than administrators, because they've got no more room, and they've got a razor thin margin in the House. So I think they are up against it to try to deliver, because the alternative is economic collapse. Recession would be a kind thing for us, as opposed to defaulting on all of our debt. Because you default on the debt, you can no longer borrow, which means your $4 trillion deficit, you got to cut $4 trillion out of your budget. And Social Security, there's just not enough money. So I think we have a unique pressure on the current administration to get stuff right, because whoever's president, when the economy collapses, no one's going to think about anything else. They're not going to be talking about immigration. They're not going to be talking about transgender. They're going to be like, the economy, we failed to pay our debts when this happened.
Right. I think you're helping make my point, which is that we're at a unique period where there's enough tension that's been built up, in the system. And there's people who feel directly violated by what this administration does, and there's people who have their hopes pinned on this administration. And if this administration fails to deliver, at least for those people who have their hopes pinned on it, then the only thing that can create a groundswell that will cause some level of change. And there has to be a catalyst. There has to be somebody who can actually catalyze that and who can take it and move it in a direction. That's going to be a political one. That I'm hoping that there will be people who see what I think we see, which is that you can't keep doing the same old thing the same way. You can't keep playing this rule. The one thing I'll say about Trump is that he created new rules for how this game is played. And there's going to have to be somebody else who sees that and says, aha, I can take that ethic and create new rules that actually do blow it up and blow up the system in a good way. Not just blow it up so I can make money.
Why did you get my back in the text chain when I said that? You didn't get my back when I said that in the text chain.
Yeah, because I disagree with both of you.
What?
Yeah, I disagree with both of you. What new rules has he set up? This is, again, macroeconomics hasn't changed in the past 3 months. So what new rules has he invented?
He went directly to the people. He said he created a system by which he was able to create loyalty amongst people by using social media, by using rallies, by doing whatever. And he became so popular with his base that it caused his who could have been political enemies, even within his own party, to say, if we want to keep our jobs, we don't have the courage to go against him, so we'll just go with him, right? That's what he did.
So I will grant you the mandate, but what does that have to do with the $36 trillion national debt? Or were you arguing about just his tactics to become president?
No, I'm arguing with there has to be someone who, if and when this thing goes badly or enough people are saying this is not working, there has to be someone who uses this new rule about how you can speak directly to people and get your word out, get your story out, that people are saying, oh, well, here's somebody who maybe does really have our best interest at heart. Or here's a group of people who really do have our best interest at heart. Maybe we'd be willing to listen to them. And that person or people have to really want to look at the system as a whole and really do some change.
Well, I got good news for Darren because he's such a fan of tariffs. But the combination of tariffs and a national debt that's so large, it will absolutely reduce economic growth. So your dream will come true of just taking our economy into the toilet.
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't know if you guys remember, but for like 20 years, I was like a vegetarian pescatarian.
I do remember that.
So I remember in the latter years of the Obama administration, when the debt was going up and up. And at the time, I thought it was like, this is unsustainable. Oh, my God. I remember saying to myself, all right, when the economy collapses, I'm not going to be able to get vegetarian food. And I'm too far from the ocean to get fish. I need to become a carnivore so I can eat rats and pigeons. That was my reason.
Wow.
Because here's the thing. Without refrigeration, you can have a store of rats and pigeons because all you need are seeds and bugs. So I had this whole plan about I'll have rats and pigeons in the garage and I'll be able to eat like a king. Because there will be no food, and so that was one of the impetus behind me becoming a carnivore again, so that my stomach could handle the rats and pigeons. So just to let you know where that came from, because remember at the same time there was a lot of zombie movies that were coming out, dystopian things, and I was like, I need to be able to figure out.
I remember our conversation on the way to the USC Texas game. Trust me. I got that one bookmarked. So,
well, on the heels of that unsavory confession,
wow! But I'm pumped.
Right. Yeah. If you guys have any thoughts about this, I mean, there's only two routes that you can take on this matter, which is hope and despair, right? And I don't want to seem Pollyanna-ish as to what I hope, but I think history has shown us that that nothing stays the same, and the pendulum tends to swing back and forth both ways. But I think we're in a new era where structural change is now more apparent than ever. So we'll see what happens as we go forward. Ron may end up his way of thinking may hold sway. Maybe Darren and I will have something the way we're thinking.
I think the difference between the three of us on this point is I I can agree at a macro level with both of your points, but I'm also thinking about, and how does this affect my day-to-day life?
Mhm.
And I think about all I can do. And actually, there was an alumni group meeting. I'll just put it this way: there was an alumni group meeting last week, and one of the conversations was around DEI and what does that mean for our university. And some of the thoughts were, okay, well, what can we do? And one of the conversations, which by the way, I'm going to get both of you guys involved, is okay, well, mock interviews. Help the current students be ready for interviews and jobs so that way they are the best prepared they can be to be gainfully employed after they graduate from SC. And that's something where at a micro level, okay, I can't change Washington, but I can make changes where people I can touch, can benefit. And I think that's the only difference between the three of us is I really do say, okay, you know what? I can't even watch the news. Okay. So what can I do either for our family to get a step ahead or our friends or affinity groups that we're members of? That's sort of where I play right now, because if I just can't wait for something for the revolution that may not come.
And I'm with you there. I operate on the micro level. When I graduated from SC and went to work for Hughes, I worked in radar. And the thing in radar is you have to stay below the radar not to be a target. And so what I have done is I just went back below the radar to work at a micro level. But I think the macro conversations still need to happen as well. I think we still need to be out there making people alert and aware as to the big picture. But on a smaller level, I'm constantly thinking about, how can I navigate this or how I can, support those with whom I'm associated with, and teach people how to raise rats and pigeons.
Yeah, let's hope the world Darren Gray envisions is a long ways off. But I think we all agree. I think we agree in the main with all that's been said. I mean, there's who you can directly affect, and this offering that we're doing through this podcast is an example of that. But I think you always have to have an eye toward the bigger picture. I think the thing that's missing in America is our collective sense of common good. Like, what is it that we're after as a country, as opposed to fearing one another? And I don't want this to sound like some kind of Pollyanna type thing, but we've been so splintered, right? And in a certain way, that splintering creates an opportunity for voices to rise, because there's not a gatekeeper the way it used to be. The gatekeepers are decentralized. And so the opportunity for people to become the next Joe Rogan or this one or that one, where the truth, Ron, I think you said, no one can decipher what is really truth. I think there is a need for voices to rise up who really do break through with actual truth telling or desire to get to the truth. So if you guys out there have thoughts about this, which I'm sure there are many, we invite your comments and your feedback and your criticisms, whatever it happens to be, whether you're a pigeon lover or a rat lover, we're we don't discriminate. So to that point, we'll wrap up that part of the conversation and we'll dip into the fun fact of the week, which is we're right around here, daylight savings time or whatever. I want to combine politics and daylight savings time, which is to say, do either one of you guys know the first country to actually implement on a national level daylight savings time?
Was it Germany?
That's the common thought. But actually, they experimented with it. But the first country that actually instituted was our friends to the north, Canada.
Oh.
So while we're extending tariffs to them, we should do a tariff on daylight savings time.
Yes.
All year round. So that was my little fun fact for the day.
Now, do we want it to be standard time or daylight savings time all year round? Because I never know which people are in favor of.
Yeah, I want the one that gives us the most daylight, the most. But the sun does what the sun does. So their days get longer, the days get shorter. But daylight savings time is like the day that daylight. I'll tell you, my two favorite days of the year. First, the number 2 day is when daylight savings time starts, and my saddest day of the year is the summer solstice, because that's the longest day of the year, and every day starts to get shorter from there. So that's kind of how I think about daylight, throughout the year. So.
That's because you're an American, man. If you were a North Polian, the North Polians don't have that problem.
Right. They got too much daylight and too much dark, so they got too.
For me, my saddest day of the year is after USC's first loss in football. So.
Well, there you go. There's that too. You've been having a lot of dark days lately.
Dark days. Yes.
So anyway, guys, this has been really great. Another great conversation. We hope you guys at out there who are listening or watching are enjoying it as well. Again, we hope you'll leave us a comment, you hit that like button or subscribe. And you'll see us the next time when we come back together. Any parting shots before we go, guys?
No. Another good conversation, man. I love our podcast and our text change.
And the thing, 40 years later, we're still learning tidbits about each other's personality.
That's right. Don't go to Darren's house for dinner. You don't know what you're gonna get.
No.
Ranching pigeons, man. Ranching pigeons.
That's a hard pass.
Tastes like chicken. Tastes like chicken.
Yeah. When the end of the world comes, you're gonna be thanking me. No
Darren,
refrigeration needed.
Darren, you don't have to bring a dish. You good.
Darren, you just come to the potluck. Leave your don't bring a pot.
Good.
That's great, guys. Always a good time. So we're gonna get out of here. And guys, again, we thank you for checking us out, and we will see you next time. Until then, we've got issues.